What's up, CMQ? CMQ investors, Charlie Munger is my favorite investor of all time, and I recently came across an article from 2013, believe it or not, an article that I didn't even know existed, that detailed some of the master market moves that Charlie Munger made during the 2008 financial crisis on behalf of the Daily Journal Corp's portfolio. That is the same portfolio that, some on Twitter are saying that Charlie ruined, by loading up on Alibaba. This was really interesting to me, and it's a great lesson. There's a lot of great lessons here that I think we all can use, even if you're not the biggest Charlie Munger fan. This is pretty cool. So it comes from the Wall Street Journal. It was published on August 30th, 2013 by one of my favorite authors, Jason Zweig. It's titled, Charlie Munger, Lessons from an Investing Giant. One of the least appreciated virtues in investing is courage. Filings with the SEC Commission in March, and again this month, showed the extraordinary gumption of Charlie Munger, Warren Buffett's business partner and vice chairman of Berkshire Hathaway. Now keep in mind, just to jump in here real quick, Charlie Munger was nowhere near as well known in 2013 as he is now. And he's still not that well known, but just keep that in mind. A little context I think might have been missing, or I should have said when we started. Mr. Munger, who will turn 90 years old next January 1st, is a model for individual investors who wonder how they can possibly be professionals at their own game. What makes Mr. Munger a model for individual investors? Here comes the story. I had no idea about this. In the first quarter of 2009, during the most desperate days of the financial crisis, Mr. Munger took 71% of the cash at Daily Journal, a small publishing company he chairs, and poured it into the bank stocks that so many other investors were fleeing. By March 31st, 2009, his bet already had gained 60%. With other purchases he made later, Mr. Munger invested $49.7 million into stocks and bonds that are today worth $128.4 million. Mr. Munger, it says here, was out of the office this past week and unreachable for a comment, and that is what his assistant said. But there's a note that during the Daily Journal's annual meeting in February, and again, this is in 2013, and according to an online transcript that was typed up by one of the attendees, Mr. Munger said, "We behaved pretty sensibly by moving boldly out of cash when stock prices got, quote, ridiculously low." I'm going to skip ahead a little bit here, and I'll put the link in the description if you're interested. Where does Mr. Munger get his gumption? In the late 1980s, he recalled in a magazine interview, a guest at a dinner party had asked him, "Tell me, what one quality accounts for your enormous success?" Mr. Munger's reply, and this, by the way, this is classic Charlie Munger. He says, "I'm rational." That's the answer. I'm rational. Trained as a meteorologist at the California Institute of Technology, Mr. Munger thinks in terms of probabilities rather than certainties. An early divorce and the death of his young son from leukemia taught Mr. Munger that adversity provides an opportunity to show what you're made of. I love that. Let me say that again. Adversity provides an opportunity to show what you are made of. Decades of voracious reading in history, science, biography, and psychology have made him an acute diagnostician of human folly. Charlie has such a deep sense of stoicism, says a longtime friend, Christopher Davis. He seems to be able to invert emotions, becoming uninterested when other people are euphoric, and then deeply engaged when others are uncertain or fearful. Mr. Munger favors what he calls sitting on your ass.
The investing where you find a few great companies and just sit on your ass because you've correctly predicted the future. That is what it's very nice to be good at.
Right? Regardless of what the investing crowd is doing, until a good investment finally materializes. In the panic that typically produces such an opportunity, Mr. Munger ruminates. If he likes what he sees, he pounces. Charlie knows exactly what he thinks, and the fact that other people don't agree has no impact on him, says his friend John Frank, managing principal at Oaktree Capital Management in Los Angeles. He doesn't get confused about the difference between an emotional feeling and an intellectual understanding. Many money managers spend their days in meetings, rifling through emails, staring at stock quote machines with financial television flickering in the background, while they obsess about beating the market. Mr. Munger and Mr. Buffett, on the other hand, sit in a quiet room and read and think and talk to people on the phone, says Shane Parrish, a money manager who edits Farnham Street, a compelling blog about decision-making. By organizing their lives to tune out distractions and make fewer decisions, he adds, Mr. Munger and Mr. Buffett have tilted their odds towards making better decisions, right? It's probabilities. Mr. Munger and the Daily Journal haven't disclosed which stocks he bought during the crisis, but Jacob Walensky of ValueWalk, an investing website, believes the largest position was in Wells Fargo, followed by U.S. Bancorp. Mr. Buffett declined to comment as well, other than to say, and I quote, "Charlie is indeed rational," end quote. Very cool. And I have the Daily Journal's portfolio. You can see they haven't added anything other than Alibaba since 2013. I know I mentioned that in the past Alibaba video when I was trying to convey that this was not a decision that was just made on a whim. This is Charlie Munger doing what Charlie Munger does. I really do believe I understand his approach to investing in a really deep, usable way. And I try to share that as much as I can because what he does is not what everyone does, but it's rooted in these big ideas that underlie reality. It's big fundamental ideas or models that really work. It's not based on anything else. It's one of the most, the way that I see it, one of the most realistic ways to look at the investment game or the process that you could possibly have. Thanks so much for watching. For CMQ Investing, my name is Chris Franco. We'll talk soon.